to SCI-Arc. Thank you for coming. My name is Hernan Diaz Alonso. I'm the graduate thesis coordinator here at SCI-Arc. And it's my pleasure to introduce you Arvind Palep. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, which is a co-founder and partner of the First Avenue Machine, which is a CGI-VFX animation studio and production based in New York, but they don't really fit in the category where you would usually associate with people who work in that field. I have to confess, I love that work, which is it's kind of unusual because usually when you have to do this introduction, many times you have to introduce people that you couldn't care less about their work, or you hate the work. In this case, no, I really like their work. It was brought to my attention a couple of years ago from a couple of my students in Columbia University in New York. And I was absolutely blown away. It was one of the first shorts in which they produced this kind of a new kind of a species. And I was trying to think why students of architecture will have an interest in the work of First Avenue Machine, and what is the relevance of these issues in the contemporary discussion that we have here. So you know, this is one of the student selection lectures. So the students invite you to be here. So which it seems to me that most of our students are in the right track. But the reason why I think their work is very interesting and relevant for this discussion is because I just learned that this is going to be your first lecture, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a casualty. I think his first lecture will happen in a place like SCI-Arc, who have an obsession and interest in always looking outside the field and look with other interested people and working in the field of fine arts or movies or design at large. And what I think is very interesting and relevant about the work is that I think they produce, I wouldn't say completely new aesthetic, but certainly a redefinition of aesthetics that have to do and is embedded with one of the critical shifts that happened to me. It happens to me in the last 10 or 15 years. It has to do with the shift from representation to simulation and the possibility to start to think in the condition to create new species and start to understand what other alternative worlds are available for us. We were talking today with my students about an important distinction which I think it comes handy when we discuss what is the future of the new technologies and techniques and what that means in terms of sensibilities and what that means in terms of the design ambition. And I think an important distinction is how we separate a kind of a logic of science fiction versus a logic of fantasy. And I think for architecture or design at large, I think science fiction always is a more interesting one because it establishes a possible future that is based on a certain logic that we can see it as something that it may happen. Fantasy is something that is very useful, but usually create a whole parallel world and not necessarily establish any kind of preconditions about how the future can be. What I think of the work of First Avenue Machine, which for me is so compelling, is they have the capacity to produce that science fiction effect, aesthetic and sensibility, but I have the sensation that it comes from a fantasy way of thinking about the problem. And I think that put them in a very unique condition and it produced this fascinating body of work, which it doesn't look like anything else that is working in a similar field. So it's my pleasure to introduce Arvind and looking forward to see what he has to show and to tell us. Welcome to SCI-Arc.
Hi, everybody. Well, I'd say thanks for inviting me. On behalf of me and everyone back in New York in the studio. I guess, to be honest, when I first saw the invitation and went on the website, I thought SCI-Arc was like a science fiction conference. So I actually was really excited about it because I was going to be able to talk about science fiction. It was like, seemed like really related. But not that I don't like architecture. I just don't know anything about it. And I think it was kind of struck me as kind of odd that I was invited to talk about architecture or at an architecture school. But I am flattered to be here. I went on the website and checked out like some of the speakers that you guys had in the past, and it's really amazing to be a part of such an amazing list of speakers. And please bear with me, I'm not exactly a Barack Obama when it comes to public speaking. And I guess the way I want to structure this, I want to do it more, I hate the word lecture, I want to do this more of like a show and tell. And that's pretty much what it's going to be. And after the videos, I'd really like to open up for discussion because I'm really bad about talking about my own work. And for a long time, like, I guess the mystery of the studio was the fact that we were, people always ask us, come to us and go, like, well, what is First Ave and how big are you, or what is it? And I think now it's obvious that we're an commercial animation studio, and that's kind of what we're labeled now. And since, you know, in the commercial advertising business, we've, you know, it's become more popular. But for a long time, and a few years back, there was really this kind of mystery about the studio because really nobody knew. We just kind of started releasing these videos and putting them on YouTube, and people would just kind of respond to them in a weird way, and it sort of generated itself, this sort of hype. And that's how we sort of built the studio based on that sort of following. Sorry, I got these. Purple marker. So I think, just to give you a little bit of background about like how the studio got started, and Serge Patzek, which is the co-founder, our producer, the other partner, we basically met each other in a place called Amoeba Proteus, and it was my first job in New York right out of school, and I had a real fine arts background, and I made a demo reel based on like some basic, really kind of very just archaic looking 3D animation, and it really, it really struck a chord with these guys at the office. Serge was already working there. And Amoeba Proteus is run by Darren Aronofsky and Dan Strecker. I don't know if you know Darren. He did Pi, Requiem for a Dream, and all those other films, and now, and Dan Strecker. So the office was actually a really small place. It was like this really crappy office on the west side. And walking there was nothing what I expected, but it was such a small little studio. It was a great chance. It was such a high energy creativity. I really got a chance to like, just meet everybody and kind of feed off everybody. It was a great just first job right out of college. And that's where I met Serge. Serge really responded to the work I was doing there. We were working on like a, sorry, this thing's not high enough. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. So basically he kind of responded to the work I was doing there, and after that, we worked on a little small pilot animation. We left there, and we were like, hey, well, let's give each other a job, and let's start our own thing. And I think from then on, we just kind of, we basically set up shop in my apartment on First Ave, and hence the name First Ave Machine started from there. And really for many years, for about three years, it was still in my apartment on First Ave, and we set up a fake phone line just to make business calls and set up, you know, because we were at that point in time we were trying to search out representation, but we really didn't have much work at the time. It was really just a couple of videos I made in college, and that was it. And nobody really wanted to. I mean, we weren't working, so we needed to pay the bills, and obviously getting a job was important. And we did not want to get a job, so we wanted to definitely keep this thing going. So what happened? So I realized I needed to make a video. I needed and a lot of my fine arts work. Sorry, I'm just gonna kick on the laptop. How I want to structure this, I want to kind of show you a few kind of images and kind of things I did early on, like when I think one thing we were referencing the Alias video, which the Sixes Last video, which I created. And actually, that video seemed to, like, it really is just an extrapolation of like a lot of the drawings and sort of the early sort of ideas that I've had in school. And I used to, I'm a big product of the 80s. I love robots, I love Transformers, I love anything science fiction. I like anything, just basically, I'm really inspired by science, and I'm obsessed with the idea of like evolution and early evolutionary forms, and just kind of when these sort of this sort of video was sort of created out of basic just responding to just the things that I liked. I really didn't have a particular idea in mind, but I really wanted to. Once I started getting into computers, I was just so immersed and amazed at the fact that I had this software that can really create pretty much whatever I want and just make it move and breathe. And it was just like coming from painting and drawing from a really loose fine arts background. It was really there was no box kind of pulling me in. I was just kind of thinking these wild ideas, and really it was just I wanted to sort of take all these little shapes and things that I was drawing and forms that seemed to kind of be reminiscent of like sort of like things you would see under the ocean, or stuff you would see, or like fungus, and just sort of those sort of ideas that really came through in some of the work. But the beauty of the computer was the fact that I could play with any sort of material I wanted, and it wasn't limited. I could sort of apply like this car material or this sort of this really organic materials, and really if you get in this software, it's just limitless, and that really just captivated me in the fact that this is really just a platform for having like godlike powers. You can make whatever you want and make it look real, and I think that's probably one of the most effective parts of the videos, is that I sought out to make them look real, and that's what I wanted to do, is just make people really believe these things possibly might actually exist. And I like the idea that some people might look at that and be like, why can't that be? Like, why wouldn't that exist? Or have the confusion of or even really thinking they do exist. Is just that sort of effect is to me is really exciting. And I'm still, to this day, still trying to explore and think of new ideas to push that. But I think I kind of want to go into first showing some just kind of images from early on. I just kind of these sort of, when I go back, I create a lot of reference databases and things like that. And I really just, I don't look for like just pretty pictures. I kind of look for just things that really, kind of just, there's something about the material, the translucency, the simplistic shapes and things like that. I'm basically just copying these ideas and just kind of playing with the materials and putting things that normally you would see underwater, maybe above water, or vice versa. And I really, it's just for this image example, like I just love the way the light hit this creature. I don't know what it is, or some kind of jellyfish, but when I saw it, I just loved this area down here, the way the light just like ripped through it, and it's just, maybe it's just decaying there, but there's something really effective about the images that I want to kind of bring into my work. Is the fact that it brings a level of tangibility. Like when I see this image, I want to just grab a stick and poke at it. And I don't know why, but that's just a sort of impulse I get. And I think a lot of these things, the more organic, and I think also with CG, it's really easy to kind of work in a very sort of boxed in kind of structural way of working. So, and there's a lot of tools and things like that to kind of automate things and replicate things, duplicate things. But I find that, just working in CG is just exactly the same as painting or doing any sort of organic sort of work or being able to express your artistic ideas, you just really, the more you use your actual hand and placement, the more rich the image comes out. And I think that's something that I really pay close attention to when I create some of these images. And like this image, for instance, like the tips of his fingers really got me, just the translucency. This shape struck me because I could see like a spacecraft design after this insect or something. These are just, I mean, in architecture, you obviously think the exact same way about the same sort of things, and you're constantly looking at forms. And nature is obviously where I get all my inspiration from. It's really been like the driving force between most of all my work. I'm just gonna load up some drawings. These were sort of, I mean, some of these drawings were really bad, and I really just didn't, the more I got into CG, I just kind of, the weaker my drawings got, because I spend less time conceptualizing things and making them straight in the computer now, and I really just think about like these kind of floral arrangements and things like that of these sort of weird plant-like creatures, and the evolutionary kind of thing about it. It's really I really like the idea that that when we created the Alias video, it's like I was making it in the intention of, well, what if man emulated some sort of synthetic life form, and it took on its own evolution, and what happens after that if it spawns some sort of like new synthetic biological hybrid kind of life form, and then it just kind of took off from there, just the same way. And it's really bounded by no rules, but just set off in nature. It might just find its own way and evolve and attach itself to whatever is out there. And it really, that was sort of like basically the dream behind the Alias video. But I guess I'll go into the video and show it. I know you guys probably seen this video, but I like to just play it again and kind of maybe even open up some questions afterwards. So that video was actually shot in the Bronx Botanical Gardens. We basically, after that video was completed, we released it on YouTube, and then there was this sort of like this big wave of sort of people responding to it. We were actually pretty shocked about how many hits it got on YouTube, and then this is about the exact same time we were kind of trying to, Serge and I decided we were set on developing this sort of commercial studio and kind of getting into this work. And releasing on YouTube we thought was a good way to like sort of get more attention and maybe possibly get representation. And then maybe actually start making some money. But I think after a certain point, it was just funny, like the comments, and I don't read blogs anymore, and just kind of like the sort of people that respond to videos, and people are like, oh man, must have been smoking so much weed when we made that, or just kind of like, or just like, man, I gotta do some shrooms and watch this video again, and just you funnel through like a list of just tons of stuff like this, and you're just, yeah, okay, well, I mean, it kind of takes your work and sort of, puts it down to another level, but then you wonder, like, well, I guess if that's what you want to do. But at this point in the studio, we're still pretty broke. I think we hadn't gotten representation, and I think at this point we're getting kind of frustrated. I made this video, and Serge was making phone calls, and we were calling all these people, and finally we got one phone call, and they called back, and it was Nickelodeon. We were like, awesome. Nickelodeon called us, and so we kind of marched our way into the Viacom building, and had this like little small meeting with them, and we just popped in the DVD, and we're like, we want to make a commercial, and we want some money for it. So if you guys can please, we really want to make a commercial. And so that's basically what happened after that is Nicktoons, ID spots. You probably never saw these on TV. I think they just wanted to make these commercials just to make them, but never air them, just for their own like fun. But here are the 3 Nickelodeon ID spots that kind of came from this. And a lot of this work is still, we're still in my apartment. This is my bathroom. So that was at a really short, like we'll call it small 10-second spots, but that one check got me a new computer, which is awesome because now I can like render things twice as fast and split them up between the 2 computers. I had one computer and this Mac attached to a monitor that I found off the streets of New York, and it was really it's funny, but and then after this we basically got some meetings after that, and the fact that these representational people saw a commercial tag on something, they suddenly thought it was legitimized. So we signed on with Patricia Clare, which is absolutely insane looking back on it, because at the same time she had 4 other people on her roster, and Pixar was one of them, which is, there's 300 people working there, and we're making phone calls to her out of my apartment, and it was wild. I mean, we were super excited, and we just knew we had to just start making more work to add to the portfolio and just keep making stuff to keep. They wanted to visit our office for a while, and we just kind of were telling them to come back later, and we were really busy in the middle of projects and things like that. But it was like that for a while. We kept the scam going for quite a bit. But so the next piece I want to show is basically the first machine promo, and it really was like a piece that was based off a piece I did in college with this idea of machines, of design over functionality, functionality over design. I made a series of robots that couldn't work. There was no way they could work mechanically if they are actually to move or whatever. They look cool, and it was just a small piece I did, and actually, you know, walking around New York, and I think this year Osmo came out, like the Honda robot, and all these new things, and Japan announced they had like 7 robotics programs going on, and I was just YouTube. It's really big into robotics and really thinking about the future, and I kind of walking around New York, I was picturing like this would be so cool. Like the new iPod came out, like all these products were being released, and it was all about this new sleek kind of design, and that's what I really was kind of attracted to this, and kind of slick feel and materials that you can almost taste. It's just impeccable surfaces and this sort of attraction that eye candy of wanting to, you know, buying something that seems so commercial and product based, and that's what Mac was doing at the time, and they're still doing. But and that's what kind of really inspired me to do the first machine promo spot. It was creating machines that would sort of coexist with humans, and it was so already so adopted into society that it was just so nonchalant. You're like having coffee and you got your robot hanging out by you, and it was something like I always thought would be kind of really cool. Is, you know, thinking about what the future might be, what these robots can do for you. I really don't know. I don't think they can do much for you besides like maybe be an walking MP3 player or something. But I'll turn this down. Sorry we had to put that advertisement there like that. I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. After Alias, I started really, you know, after making the Alias video, it really like sparked some new ideas in my head, and I just started going off on making these like still images, and I started, you know, that's one great thing about 3D is that, you know, being able to manipulate things and duplicate them and just kind of seeing what new shapes are giving, you know, what sort of things you can manifest out of just like taking one simple object and just kind of twisting it upside down and just morphing it. And it's really just the ultimate freedom of kind of being able to manipulate any object with actually not having to build it in real life and destroy it. I mean, I know a lot of you know this and probably already all work with softwares that allow you to do these things, or Maya, or whatever 3D software you're using. But again, this is sort of, was like a eureka for me, you know, coming from a fine arts background. I really just went crazy with making these sort of images that that basically, this is just one of the robots in the video. I just kind of started duplicating and kind of twisting around. And I know there's like a really like a common theme throughout all this work with this camera eye that you see in a lot of the work, and it really just became something else. I thought of this for some reason, this idea that maybe this sort of voyeurism, this idea of it just maybe being self-aware and sort of really just kind of intrigued me a little bit, because I thought, you know, the idea that something can see you and makes it just much more alive. And that sort of became like the real kind of, I just couldn't leave it out of any image. Except this one. But I just started making these landscapes and started like really kind of taking some of the things I saw and kind of sort of manipulating them and kind of creating these seabeds of coral and shapes, and just kind of seeing like, just kind of creating this new biodiversity of just these synthetic kind of creatures, and seeing playing with materials and transparency, and just thinking of like this sort of artificial kind of life, and just kind of trying to make them, seeing how they can be beautiful, and freedom of using light, and taking them, simulating them in and out of the water, and using these HDRI maps and things like that you know, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with. And use it to light an outdoor scene or indoor scene in 3D. But the work seems very science fiction based, which it is. It really comes from my love of the idea of pretty much just simulating some of these things. Like, you know, the one great freedom of obviously working this medium is that you can, anything you can sort of think of, you can make and make it almost look tangible and real. And I just really, the idea of making things self-illuminated and just kind of just absorbing yourself in this sort of, these sort of visions and ideas, you can get really lost in it, and that's sort of how this work sort of got spun. I guess moving on, I want to sort of go back to the first out promo machines video. And again, like there were sort of reference images I've been pulling, like just to kind of get the look of these things. You know, I really was just kind of looking for something that felt very just product-based. You can probably see a lot of these machines and some of the ideas and how like maybe they translate, just like the reflectivity of the way the light hit this shape here. It really, those sort of moments really kind of drew me in. And I wanted to make something that kind of felt like almost identical to that. Had the material of this, because to me this just feels like a product that I can almost put in my mouth. Like there's something very likable and lickable and tangible about the surface of it. So going back, so yeah, I mean, the project was really fun. I got to play kind of like this product designer and creating these different sort of like machines and kind of just seeing what almost feels like something that if you walked into a store and seemed reminiscent of the time, of like what people were buying off the shelves and getting inspired by consumer products and kind of implementing them into this sort of design idea. They seem very user-friendly, and you can design a robot any way you want to. And I think it's the idea of that's what made it even all that more believable, is the fact that it seemed like something that people could buy. And we actually got the phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning in the studio one time, and yeah, I mean, all you heard was this noise, and this party, and drinks clanking, and things like that. And some kid calls up, he's like, "Yo, man," he's like, "Are those machines on your video real? If they are, can I buy one?" And it's like, yeah, it was pretty cool because that was awesome. I mean, even though it was this drunk kid calling us at 4 o'clock in the morning in the studio, he really thought they were real, and that to me that's successful, and that it appealed to somebody in that sort of way, and he wanted to buy one. He was that obsessed about it. He called me up at a party drunk. So, also, if anybody has any questions along the way, feel free to chime in whenever you want.
Did you take down his name and address?
No, it was kind of a call at 4 o'clock in the morning. He didn't leave his name and address. I don't think he thought to leave that, but I don't know if we would have called him back anyways. But,
When you're designing these robots, do you figure out what they actually do? Do you decide the aesthetic value?
not really. It was really, it wasn't really, the functionality to me wasn't exactly the most important part of making these things. Rather than make it walk or roll or do something like that, the sake that they just look good on the side of the street, and I could fool somebody that, and I think when people can look at it and be like, well, what could they do, and how could I use one, or just the sake that someone likes it, and to me that was just the only important thing that I wanted to get across, and just and to create and just kind of suspend your disbelief for a moment to envision this world, maybe having these around.
Have you ever prototyping?
One thing I thought was amazing, with this 3D printing technology and stuff like that, and the future of being able to create something in this computer and then be able to spit it out of a computer printer, is just blows my mind. It's like it's really the most fascinating part. I mean, I know you can do it now, but to an extreme level where you're actually, materials and things like that, and other prototyping things like that already, and to do it on a consumer level, if it ever comes down to that, to me, it would be great. I would love to actually have one of these casted in real life, and I think that's sort of the next step with where I want to go with the work, is to kind of push it and actually kind of create things that can be made in real life. But the work's kind of moved on since then. I look back at old work and I just think about all the things I want to change, but of course that's the same story with everyone who wants to do that.
Do they have any sort of intelligence in the computer in terms of how they react to their environment? Is it all just you animating it, or do they have sort of like a built-in intelligence?
I would love to think it was more sophisticated than that, but it really isn't. there was no like programming of like some sort of simulated dynamics reaction to a real world simulation or anything like that. It's really kind of everything was just shot using just like an HD video, like the one we're shooting me in right now. Just around the street in this really organic fashion. It was really, and that sort of also became a theme throughout a lot of the work, is kind of shooting things in an unsteady kind of way. It seems to be used a lot nowadays, but back in the time we were doing it, it was really kind of a new thing to like really kind of shoot this way and track the 3D to make a whole video like this. And to me, like as soon as that happens, like the level of believability just it takes it to another level, and that's one thing I wanted to capture, and I think it was all about not simulating or kind of like creating. It was less focused on this sort of intelligence and more of just really about the design and making it look believable and likable. Yeah.
What is that just something you were doing because you liked it, or what is the purpose? Like, it could be used for backgrounds for commercial ads or whatever, but do you see a possible placement in art?
Yeah, I think that's what originally, this stuff isn't commercial art. It was my work originally, and it kind of, we used it as a vessel to get to the commercial stage. And it's really what you see is just a lot of the fine art stuff translated in the computer that I do. And I totally see, I really want to push that to the next level of taking it more into the fine arts world and kind of showing it that way, because I think even now, the series of work that I'm doing now, which I haven't shown anything to anybody, I'm going to show in Art Basel in Miami, actually, in December. But I can describe it, it's really just kind of taking some of the work you've seen in Alias. But I've really designed these, the experience, what I really want to capture, what I wanted to capture in the Alias video is the idea that you would go in with a camera and kind of voyeuristically have the feeling that you were kind of witnessing these plants for the first time in the POV of a person kind of wandering through nature and kind of just seeing these bits, almost like something you would see on Discovery, but on Discovery Channel you would actually see a special on alien life forms or these like early evolutionary forms and things that you would just never imagine. The same sort of idea I'm taking into, basically you walk in this room and it's a simulation, almost like you were going to visit the Natural History Museum and you were to look on the walls and see some sort of exhibit for the first time and but they would be displayed on plasmas, and nothing would be actually real. Creating these sort of floral arrangements, they're actually made in real life, but then kind of florally designing these arrangements and simulating the idea that they're underwater or above water, and just designing them. And there's really little discrepancy from what's real and what's not, but you know these things are moving and animating. I wanted to sort of get across a sense of bewilderment and this sort of excitement that you're really kind of witnessing something brand new for the first time. I think when I watched the Planet Earth DVDs for the first time, I had no idea any of these animals existed, and I was just amazed, like just watching this stuff. I'm just absorbing these DVDs, and just the idea that there's stuff out there that we never seen. That is way more fascinating. I think just that excitement I get from watching it is the same sort of excitement I want to kind of get across in the work. So I think that's pretty much the driving force behind everything I do. Is I want to kind of create a slight bit of amazement and suspension of belief. What's the turnaround time for these kinds of It's really, I mean, a lot of these videos were made in kind of a rush. You know, turnaround times can be dictated on several different things. I mean, if we were to do it now, I mean, I think we have a studio and a rendering farm and stuff like that. Now it really can be, rendering is kind of the biggest thing. It's the, you know, processing of the image. And I think back when it was just my 2 computers, like little poofs of smoke were coming out the back of them and working hard, I really, that's what really held me back from, you know, making these things, or producing these things quicker. Well, I guess I can move on to the next video. I think the next video I want to show is the Adidas video. And actually, this was our sort of first big commercial gig. And this was sort of like, for us, this kind of helped us afford kind of things to the next level, which really built the studio. And for the World Cup, it was sort of a big deal. And, you know, being in America, I'm not that huge of a soccer fan, but you know, we really enjoyed making this and designing these things. And they responded to the machine video, and it's pretty much similar to what they wanted, but the design of this the design of the character itself was actually based on the polygonal shapes of the soccer ball itself. So all the cuts and every line was handmade, and all the explosions and things like that were kind of hand pulled and 3D. There was no like simulation dynamics. We figured out that's really the only way we could sort of recreate like a really kind of beautiful, elegant kind of separation of all these pieces. But the aesthetic of this video, it really comes back to a lot of the work that we were doing, because it, again, it was playing with the same kind of materials, the same kind of shapes and things like that we enjoyed working with. And I think from then on, it was really the movement. I think after Adidas, people started obviously responding to this commercial stuff. We started getting more gigs, and the MTV Japan thing was sort of the next thing on the list. We and I think traveling to Japan, we shot right near the Shibuya station area. We actually shot a lot of stuff in the Golden City, and I was just amazed by this place because it looked exactly like Blade Runner. Like, some of these streets are pretty incredible. I have some pictures, but let's go ahead and show the video. It's a really weird video. It's what they wanted, but you know, I think in the same time, it was really a challenge to do this stuff. And you know, I guess it's like the more commercial a lot of the work became. Obviously, we had to accommodate, you know, ideas and creative solutions and things like that. And you know, advertising isn't always the most forgiving world, because again, you have to sacrifice some of your own creative ideas a lot of times, all the time, and you actually end up wondering why they hired you in the first place. But again, that's just run the mill. And and actually, going through some of the work, I mean, to some point, give or take, that even though it's advertising, we were able to at least salvage at least some sort of aesthetic, and we're able to really implement what we do. And I think, given that, that's, I think, a great part of it, that we're able to keep some of the stuff. Quinn's is a project we did for Motherland, and it's shot in Puerto Rico, in the rainforest. It's terrible drink, by the way. We ended up getting drunk off this stuff one night, and it was just awful. After 3 of them, this is all sugar water, we just empty it out. But again, you can see how, like, we had these guys from London come and like, can we make an Alias video again? And that was pretty much what it was. It was basically a recreation of Sixes Last. And it's, again, you find yourself doing things like that all the time. But a good thing, the Alias kick is over, and people are over it. Sorry. I want to show one more video. This is the insects video. It's called Ted. And basically, one day, any chance we had to do a music video gig is the best, because one, the music video industry has no money, and they really have no choice but to do everything you say. And that's awesome for people like us, because really, it's a great artistic outlet. You can really, if you really love a song on a track, you can really, and obviously we want to pick songs with no people in it, because we don't want to feature a band. It's something we want to show off what we do creatively and visually. And we got this call. We have this conjunction with Warp Records, and Warp sends the CDs every month, and we'll pick out a CD or a track that we like. And Chris Clark called us up, and he was like, well, I want to do a video. It's like, here's this track, and what do you guys think? Call me back when you guys have an idea. So I called him back, and I was like, I really want to do this video where it's kind of the same thing we do with Alias, I do with insects. And this is just the stuff I was really into at the time, and I tried to describe this video the best I could over the phone, but I really don't think they even understood it then. They were just like, okay, do it. We have no choice, so make it. So they just took our word for it, and so it was pretty cool. From then on, we just kind of from then we went to we started calling around for places, and we found this place called the Insectarium, and it was located in this podunk town outside of Philadelphia, right outside of Philadelphia. It was this run by this guy, ironically, this ex-exterminator, decided to make a museum dedicated to insects. But he had this amazing collection, and I'm going to show a few images of this place. This place was wow. It was just creepy at the same time. I didn't even color correct these images. It was this green inside this place. I swear to God. I mean, and this whole mural you see on the background and everything, it's just the amount of work. I mean, I actually went down and bent over and took a look closely at like the work that they had put into this place, and this is just nuts. And it was just really quiet, and we were the only ones there, and it was open, but just nobody came. But we called them. They were like, "Hell yeah, come on down. We'll handle the insects for you." And we were just like, "Awesome, this is great. Like, who would do this for us? We could go to the zoo and do this. We wouldn't have to sign all these waivers and forms and things like that." And really, it was kind of a dream come true for us because we had these people just volunteering to do everything for us. You know, they were willing to help us out in any sort of way. Even this room, I walked in. There's this one aquarium that has this filter that made this really like creepy sound. It's like it's humming, and just kind of give you a visual idea of what it was like in there. But in all these aquariums are some of the most dangerous insects on the planet. So it was a low-budget video, you can tell. That's our camera, that's our setup for the TED video. I made this backdrop and a turntable in case I wanted, while we're shooting this thing, to actually rotate the stage while we're filming. And that ended up never happening because one, my hand was way too close to these insects, and that would eat my hand for breakfast. And two is just like, the second you move that thing, the insect would just take off. And we were shooting with the lights off, and it was, I was not having an insect. And as these images go on, you'll see this is just basically the setup. We had to use these glow sticks, which we've created a really kind of interesting effect, and you can see the giant walking stick thing in the monitor. We had to use these glow sticks because the lights, they got too close to the insects, they would just fry up and disappear. And here's this lady, I think her name was Brenda. She'd been working in this place for years, and she just had no problem reaching in any of these aquariums, just nabbing a tarantula by her bare hands. And I'm petrified of spiders. I really didn't even want to get, even ones like the size of a millimeter in my shower, I'm basically standing out like 5 feet away from it. But yeah, she's crazy. She really just had no problem. And literally, I think it's like yeah, and here was this tarantula never made it in the video. It scared the shit out of me. It was really just this massive thing. It was the size of my hand. But as you can see, like a petrified, concerned look on my face as I'm kind of staring this thing down. But I think the most amazing thing about those are fangs. He got really disturbed, and he was starting to move a lot quicker, and I just like, get him out of here. I don't want an incident. Yeah, but this was a really cool shoot, and it really, the footage came out beautiful, and I just kind of want to play the video here just a moment. Oh yeah. Sorry, guys. again, the idea behind that video is basically creating something that suspends your belief, and you notice there's something kind of different about these things. I mean, it's, but somehow it's believable. You don't think, like I showed this to my parents, and they were like, cool, you shot a bunch of insects. What's new about it? And that sort of really got to me, because I was like, well, I really want actually people to notice the work that we did, because it really, this was a huge feat for this type of work, and so I decided to make this video to kind of show people the amount of work that went into it, because I think some people just don't really see it, but this will really show you the amount of layers. So and that was just basically creating this like sort of seamless integration between the insects and the added pieces and things like that. But we didn't. There's like universal ones used for just about anything when it works. So I guess. Yeah. You're talking about the music, and the music playing a role. The music to me is, the ideas always come before the music, like you said. And so the music really doesn't really play much of a role in it. It really just kind of specifically do, because I have like this backlog of ideas that I want to make, and as soon as some artist comes up to me and goes, hey, you want to do a video? Yeah, I got this perfect idea. And then I'll use it. It might not work well with what the artist wants to do, but I'll try my best to sort of fuse the two together in a way where it tries to work.
What program do you use?
We use 3D Max. We've been using that for a while. But you know, it's software really isn't the big part of it. I mean, any of these softwares can create the exact same image. It's it really, the rendering, it used to be a different story, but I think now it's come to the point where a lot of these softwares work in conjunction with each other, so it's just really vice versa. So.
Looks like it'd be really hard to track these objects onto these moving...
That's why the tarantula never made it, because, or this like deadly scorpion that would just run like 100 miles per hour. Because that was...
hand tracking it, or
it's a mixture. It's like hand track, computer track, but I think that was, there's a lot of footage that never got used because of that exact reason. Yeah. So we would just take one moment of tracking that worked, and we're like, oh, awesome. And then, you know, maybe a few glitches, and then we just kind of keyframe it in. But that was kind of, yeah, one of the sort of hurdles we had to get over in creating this video. And a lot of the videos, because a lot of it uses camera tracking.
Do you ever like consulting with scientists or like biologists or people that are a little more knowledgeable? I mean, do you just sort of design based off of an aesthetic, or are you sort of going for maybe sort of thinking about what the functions of these extra things that you add on to these?
It sort of goes in that. It's to me, it's a little more dreamlike, a little more just free floating in that sense, because when I create this thing, I mean, I read a lot of like science books, and I live, evolution and a lot of like just anything to do with science, whether it's quantum physics or whatever. I'm just super interested, and I subscribe to new scientists. I love just hearing about any sort of breakthrough in technology, but I was actually talking to someone back in the office, like, what if you actually made these things for in real life, or you got a hold of some biophysicist or whatever, or he was able to make one of these things, and wouldn't that be cool? And I've thought about that, but then I don't know. That just seems so far out of my league as an artist. But yeah, it would be cool if it actually inspires somebody to take what I'm doing and think about it in that way. Like, I think the future of science, and like just basically working in 3D software, is really, to me, it's going to be the interface of the future. Everyone's going to be working in a three-dimensional sort of reality, because you think about it, it's going to be the world of customization. And customization is about selecting options and being able to manipulate things exactly the way you want it, design it for yourself. And I think we're all going to be, even consumer level people, are going to be working within these sort of similar interfaces, designing things for themselves. Or you need a special steering wheel or a car seat or something that kind of designed for you. I think that's really just the next step.
Where do you think your work as an artist fits in that?
I don't. It's a funny question, because I don't know. I guess as an artist, I think it's interesting to. Like I said, I think if it were to inspire somebody, that would be like a great thing for me. Like, if someone were to take some of these ideas and like look at it and see it as a reality. I think like you have scientists out there that dream up these types of ideas and think about doing these things, but never actually ever see the idea manifested until it one day becomes reality. And if this is sort of like a window into this kind of future for them, and gives them some sort of new idea and outlook, and maybe even helps them sort of preventative process from doing certain things, or it helps in some way, I think that's, to me, that's very satisfactory.
Do you, when you do your rendering and stuff, do you ever try to like convey a certain emotion to the stuff, or is it just the fun of creating something that doesn't exist?
Yeah. I think it maybe comes through a little bit more subconsciously for me. I think the mood and stuff like that. The music video I'm working on now is very more emotional. It's getting more into kind of narrative, and I think a lot of this work has just become just more visual. It's just been just kind of like a voyeuristic look into these like places and worlds and ideas. But now the turn is kind of getting more into like this sort of storytelling idea, but it's very much visually superior. That's where it leans more towards the visual aspect of it. And to me, that's the most important part of things I want to make. Did that answer your question? I feel like I'm Sarah Palin.
Have you ever been approached by like architects to do visualizations for them, or any kind of movies, or that relate back to?
If any of you guys want to collaborate one day, that'd be awesome. Like I think architecture and for me would be just a really. I mean, I don't know what I would do or how I would be implemented in the process, but I mean, this sort of the same sort of things that. I mean, I walk around the campus and see on the walls and things like that. It's the same sort of ideas. It's the same sort of process of thinking. taking forms, looking, just like say for average, like, just like walking by a car and seeing a really cool looking tail light, but then turning it upside down and shifting it a different way. And what could that be something else or a structure, or could it exist somewhere else? And does it start taking on a new meaning? Because it's really the same exact process I use with this stuff. I really just look around at the world around me and kind of turn it upside down and kind of just blend it in a way and see what comes out of it. That's pretty much it.